911, where's the emergency?
639's with 711.
Okay, Tracy. All right, hold on just a second.
My name is Brian Miller. I've been in law enforcement in Washtenaw County for the last 39 years. I originally started my career at Eastern Michigan University, and I came to the sheriff's office in 1978. In all those years of experience, I'm talking about things that people don't understand about law enforcement. The things that we see every day, the things that we have to do every day, sometimes can have such an emotional toll that the normal person wouldn't be able to cope with what we see and do on a daily basis. And in these 39 years, I've learned to compartmentalize some of the things that you have to encounter in law enforcement, some of the tragedies, some of the significant emotional experiences that come with being a law enforcement professional.
Aftershocks of a nightmare. This was the scene near the Detroit airport where a Northwest Airlines jet crashed moments after takeoff last night, killing at least 154 people.
You wouldn't believe it. It was just totally destroyed.
Northwest Flight 255 last night, bound for Phoenix in Southern California, was barely airborne when eyewitnesses said it banked and rolled, smashing to a road north of the airport in a fiery explosion.
Everything was on fire, the trees, the grass, cars. You could see parts of everything just laying all over. It was terrible.
The death toll was huge, more than 150 passengers and crew from the plane and 2 more people on the ground, motorists killed by the impact or the inferno. A neighborhood man who knew his friend was on the road saw the fireball and feared the worst. One report said the pilot radioed an urgent distress call an instant before impact. But the accident investigation, like the mourning for the victims, is only beginning. Richard Roth, CBS News, Romulus.
There was a group of us through the assisting Wayne County, basically from all over southeastern Michigan, police departments came. And to this day, you'll see someone or I'll talk to someone and we'll talk about, you know, the significant emotional experience that was. Our first assignment was to go out and identify human remains. And that was emotionally very, very difficult. But that's the nature of what the incident called for. One of the persons that that was there with me actually went last year to the 25th anniversary, and for the first time he talked to me about being able to let go because there were family members there that actually thanked the law enforcement professionals for their service to them and their deceased family members. And it was interesting in talking to him because he had been holding these feelings in for 25 years. He's able to function, have a normal life, but there was still that emotional scar there that he was finally able to kind of cope with or get rid of after 25 years. So how do you deal with that as an officer? Those are the kinds of things that we try to support our officers with, and part of this whole process is to educate the community too, as to understand some of the challenges that law enforcement officers have on a day-to-day basis. The average person is only concerned when they see that car behind them or they see the light go on. But this is what we do. And hopefully this series will help the community better understand the emotional aspects of law enforcement and serving the community.
Hello, my name is Mark Potasic. I'm the Undersheriff of the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office.
Day to day, the women and men of the sheriff's office, deputy sheriffs, corrections officers, communications operators, and our emergency management professionals face very difficult incidents, emotionally challenging, often traumatic. And as they face these incidents all the time, they're often in situations where they themselves may be in jeopardy. So at the time they're working to serve others, they're also maintaining kind of an aura of security for themselves, the situation they're in, and the people that they're sworn to protect. The Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office and the sheriff work to create an organization based on the policy, the practice, how we conduct ourselves on a day-to-day basis that creates the healthiest possible atmosphere for those that serve the public to also be served by us as well, and to make sure that they maintain their own health, safety, and well-being.
I'm Lisa King. I've been with Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office for 23 years, and when I began 23 years ago, I knew that there would be different things in my career that I would see or witness or take part of, but some things that I've witnessed over the 23 years I never thought could be as devastating as the story as I'm about to tell you. The story is about a fatal traffic crash which took many members of a family, and it occurred on July 30th, 2005. And I was on my way home with my family from an evening out with our friends, and I was on 23 and 14 heading back to Chelsea, and I got a call from Sergeant Fox, who was a road patrol sergeant at the time and also was a first responder to this traffic crash. And he informed me that he needed our traffic unit to investigate a fatal crash. Right now there was one person who had already passed away, and there was 4 other critical patients. So I responded home to take my family, and I had to change my clothes, and I knew it was going to be a long night, and then headed back in. At the time, my son was 7 and my daughter was 1, and I responded back in, and on the way into the crash, Sergeant Fox called me back and said there were actually 3 people who have passed away, and 2 of the young girls were now being transported to the U of M, and they were the only survivors of the crash. So this is eastbound Ford Road right off of 14, and the Duesenberg was traveling eastbound as they were coming back from getting their ice cream. And the vehicle that struck them right in their driver's door was stopped at this upcoming light that we're coming to. And when the sun was in his eyes, this is the light that he ran and failed to yield and struck the driver's door. The bodies started about this location, being thrown all throughout the road, and the Duesenberg actually didn't even come to rest till about this location right here. And one of the girls was actually thrown to this median right over here, and she's one of the girls that did survive. So that was just from that point of the intersection to where the last girl was thrown is where the debris was all over the place. When I arrived on scene, I saw a really old-fashioned model car just completely mangled and pieces everywhere along Ford Road. And there was 3 bodies still laying in the roadway covered in sheets. When I got there, I just got the initial information from the responding units, and the crash happened with the old-fashioned car was heading eastbound on Ford, and there was a car heading southbound on Plymouth right there at the traffic light, and it failed to yield at the traffic light. The driver of the car said that it was because the sun was in his eyes. So when he slowed, he didn't see the car, and so he sped up to go through the intersection, and that's when he T-boned the old-fashioned car. The vehicle was a 1929 Duesenberg, and the family that was inside the vehicle, Bradley and Kristen Patton, who and their children were inside of the car. Bradley's dad, Terry, owned a restoration company for old vehicles, and he was been working on this Duesenberg for quite a while for the owner, and they just finished restoring the car, so Bradley wanted to take his family on one last trip before the car left to go out to this car show out in California. So he loaded his family up, they went out to Canton to get ice cream, and then they drove back to their house, which was over in Dixboro Village. We're waving at their neighbors and coming coming back, and that is when the crash happened, as they were heading back to take the car back to the storage area right in Superior Township. As I arrived on scene, one of the first things that we usually do is we'll mark the scene for any evidence, and there was evidence all over the scene. It was a very complex scene that we needed to process, and to also get the bodies off the roadway and get them to the University of Michigan Hospital. And Roger Simpson from the medical examiner's office was the one responding, and I worked closely with him to remove the bodies. And the one part that just sticks with me to this day was removing the 7-year-old boy Nathan from the road. I just said bye to my son, who was at my house, and I had to get in my car to come, and that could have been any one of our families who work here. So we got Nathan loaded up into the van, and got his parents taken away. And then I went up to the hospital to meet with his grandma, who was already notified by one of the firefighters, and her 2 granddaughters were still in the hospital. So I was trying to work with the grandma, and it was her son Bradley who was killed in the crash. So she's dealing with the grief of losing her son, and then also losing her grandson, daughter-in-law, and then now has to step up and be the guardian of the children. So we were trying to get all the detailed paperwork that we needed to do so she could have temporary guardianship of the children, and make sure the girls were going to survive. And at that time they were upgraded to stable condition, and their lives were not at risk. So what they were going to face in the future was going to be worse than anything anybody could ever imagine, but they were not going to pass away at that time. A lot of people don't realize, like, being a police officer, you know, we respond and we run into danger all the time, but then you also have the emotional baggage that goes right along with it. So what are you taking home every night? What are you reliving in your head every single night? And this is just one of the stories that stays with me, and it's part of me. I was assigned to Superior Township for over a year, and I had to drive right past the accident scene every single day I went to work. And it was just part of me that every single day when I drove past that scene, I would say a prayer for the family. And that's just one way that you deal with it. And I think every situation, you have to find a way within yourself that you can deal with it and you can move on. I still stay in contact with the family. The girls are doing really well today. One's a freshman in college, the other one is a junior in high school. So they've been through still different things going on in their family that they've, you know, had some ups and downs with, but given the situations, I mean, you know, they are doing fairly well.
You know, Sheriff, for most of us, driving down the road, we see a police vehicle behind us. We get a little nervous because we're concerned about getting a speeding ticket or something along those lines. And you know, there's a lot more that's happening out there with the officers. Can you kind of tell us a little bit of what we're seeing today?
Yeah, I think we saw some very impactful stories in this episode. You know, when we say be safe out there to a law enforcement person, it's more than just their physical safety. There's some challenges around the psychological and emotional needs when you see some of the things that our staff has seen, not only our staff, but law enforcement in general. Sometimes it's death, sometimes it's serious injury, sometimes it's seniors, and sometimes it's young folks. And when you think about it, and you heard some of the stories, people told stories from almost 2 decades ago, and they told it like they were there, like it happened yesterday or it happened today. Those things are extremely impactful. It's not just a police officer, but sometimes corrections personnel have those challenges. And dispatch, there are examples where dispatchers actually have to handle emergency situations and they don't even know what's going on. All they can do is hear it. So it's important that we be mindful of not only the physical safety, but the emotional and psychological safety for police officers that based on what they face every day.
Well, I have to tell you, every one of us from LaFontaine Automotive Group are glad to be a part of you and part of the community and really appreciate everything you and your officers are doing. So from all of us at the LaFontaine Automotive Group, we'll see you next time on Beyond the Badge.
This episode of Beyond the Badge was made possible by the LaFontaine Automotive Group of Washtenaw County, home of the 995 oil change, Ann Arbor Buick GMC, Dexter Chevrolet, and Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Saline.